this is Blinken's 6th visit, as I say, to the Middle East. So do you think tangibly he can achieve something this time?
Well, it seems unlikely, it has to be said. You know, the 6th visit, and thus far there hasn't been an awful lot of progress. But, you know, there's all to play for. Many Arab countries are involved. There's still the prospect of a regional deal out there. If Israel will budge its position on issues, for instance, like the two-state solution to the problems in Palestine. But, you know, nobody is holding out a great deal of hope for this particular visit. The main thing, I think, is to ensure that traction is still there. But on the key issues, you know, for instance, on governance, security, redevelopment of Gaza, there's absolutely no movement at all. And there's no movement because Israel's not budging its position. We still don't know how Israel sees Gaza post-conflict. The United States, along with countries like Saudi Arabia, which he's visiting today, and Egypt, which he's going to be visiting tomorrow, want to push these areas because they want to try and get the idea established that once this conflict is over, that there could be an enhanced role for a reformed Palestinian Authority in Gaza. That's an idea that the Israelis under Benjamin Netanyahu refuse to even contemplate. Similarly with security, most of those who are invested in the peace process in the Middle East at the moment want to see some other force than Israel look after the security in Gaza. Israel refuses to accept that possibility. And linked to what happens next is redevelopment. Who is going to redevelop Gaza if the Israelis refuse to budge on the other two things? So, you know, there are a lot of problems standing in the way of any sort of solution at the moment. But Antony Blinken will keep nagging away at it in the hope that something will give. But the noises coming out of Israel at the moment don't give him much ground for optimism.
Well, that said, we understand an Israeli delegation is to head itself to Washington, perhaps in the coming days, perhaps next week. Is that a sign that the Israelis are a bit more willing now, do you think, to work with the United States?
Perhaps. I mean, it's interesting, too, that Blinken has added Israel to this trip. He wasn't initially going to Israel, just to Saudi Arabia and to Egypt. But he is going on Friday. You know, when Benjamin Netanyahu himself says that the reason he's sending this delegation, high-level military intelligence and humanitarian to Washington, is out of respect for Joe Biden, it doesn't suggest that, you know, he sees anything coming out of it himself. On the contrary, what he's saying is that, look, the issue for us is destroying Hamas. And on that, he says, the United States agrees with us. But it's how you go about destroying Hamas that the big disagreement arises, and they're just not on the same page. You know, Benjamin Netanyahu has made, he said he himself, I made it supremely clear, to use his own words, to Joe Biden, that as far as we're concerned, the only way to root out Hamas is to launch that assault that he's been talking about on Rafah, regardless of how many more people are killed in it. As Joe Biden said, 32,000 people killed already. If you go into to Rafah, where there are maybe 1 million displaced people from all over the rest of the Gaza Strip, you know, how many more people are going to die as a consequence? You know, what the United States wants to do is switch things around to try and get in place a pause, which will become a ceasefire, which will simultaneously see the release of hostages, and then try and use that space to get moving on the issues of governance and security and humanitarian aid that we were talking about earlier on. Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't want to go down that path. That's absolutely clear at the moment.
All right, Rob Parsons, thank you.